Welcome everyone to Throwback Gaming's Let's Play of Our Life Beatings and Always, part set 18. Last time we did dinner, which was nice. We had dinner over at Cove's house for the first time, and that was a lot of fun. So if you haven't seen that, feel free to check that out in the playlist for this one. But now it's Sunday road trip. So let's jump in, shall we? Even though you were awake, the sun had barely peeked its head above the horizon, and the sky above was still dark, the lighting by the minute. Usually you wouldn't be up so early, especially during summer vacation, but today was different. Today, instead of the lazy days you were used to, everything around you was a flurry of activity as both you and Cove's family prepared for what lay ahead. Because parked in the street, just outside your house, was a massive RV camper, so big you couldn't even see Cove's house behind it. Well, based on this picture, that must be that RV must be huge, because I mean that's a big house. His parents had rented the RV for a few days to take him on a short road trip to see the Redwood National Park. That sounds nice. He glanced at Cove, who was standing nearby, taking in the scene in front of him. The prospect of the trip had to be a mixed bag for him, but it was only 3 days, so it seemed he was dealing with it as best he could. Especially now that you and your family were joining him. Well, we're going with him, so he'll be okay. You weren't sure how exactly it happened. You knew your parents and Cove spoke to each other often, and somewhere along the way plans were made after Cliff offered to share the space. The parents all thought it was a fantastic idea. You had already gotten a good look inside while helping to load everything in, and you had to admit that it was a really big car. Fitting that many people inside was going to be snug. Yeah, there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people. I feel like her hair looks different, like it's darker, but that just might be me. Move it or lose it, kiddo. Mom bustled past with a cooler in one hand and a large bottle of water under the other. She was upbeat for this early in the morning. It's like, Mom, it's early. Like, come back in a couple hours. Aww. She's obviously not a morning person. She got her Snuggie on still. Ma, on the other hand, seemed to be on the other side of the wavelength. She followed behind her wife, dragging her feet with every step. Me in the morning. I'm gonna need a whole jug of coffee once we hit the road. You could relate to Ma, it was way too early. Me in real life. Personally, you were ready to go as your mom, or you felt you were in the middle ground between them. You yawned and rubbed your eyes, still sleepy from the early morning wake-up call. The air outside was still damp from dew that helped make you a bit more alert. I wonder if Elizabeth's coming, or if she's going to stay home and house sit. And then, at the end of the chain, came your sister. She had a bone to pick before the trip officially started. Her rattling off critiques added some level of normalcy to everything that was going on. I don't get why I can't sleep in the bed tonight. Jamie is the youngest, and I'll never fall asleep in that loft. We're trying to make things fair for everyone. If you want to play the older card, you should be offering to take the loft both nights. It's important for big siblings to make sacrifices for their younger ones. Elizabeth huffed, not happy with the answer in the slightest, and folded her arms, resting back against the side of the RV. The trip plans to have nailed down prior, the sleeping arrangements included. Elizabeth still held on to her objections with them. There was a main area of the RV with a couch, a lounge, a loft, not a lounge, and some floor space. At the end of the car was a room with a large bed. Your moms were sharing the bed, Kyra on the couch, and father and son intended to sleep on the floor. The adults determined that you and Elizabeth would switch between the small loft and the driver's seat, above the driver's seat, and sharing the bed with moms. You were fine with the arrangements, you were excited to sleep in a loft, you felt sharing a bed with your parents was going to be awkward. Yeah, how are 3 adult, well, I guess we're technically not adult, we're still a teenager, but still, how are 3 of us going to fit in one bed? You were looking forward to a sleepover with your moms. You weren't happy too happy either, but didn't want to make a fuss. You thought it was unfair that Cove had to sleep upon the floor. Yeah, why does Cove have to sleep on... I guess because your moms are in the bed. After all, it was supposed to be a trip for him and his family before yours ended up coming along too. Now he had been kicked out of every bed like space and put on the floor. There had to be another way to organize things so it'd be better for him. You offered to sleep somewhere else. You suggested sharing the loft. Yeah, that ain't gonna happen. That ain't gonna happen. You know, I'm gonna say it just to be difficult, but that ain't happening. Cove and I can share the loft while I'm up there. I don't mind making room for him. It's not happening. It's not happening. You took a glance over at Cove, but noticed that he wouldn't meet your eye in return. He wasn't able to say anything in response to the suggestion either. No, that loft is too tiny for two people, even if those two people are teens. Yeah, that's the smart answer. Instead of saying, no, you guys like each other, you're not allowed to sleep in the same bed. The last thing we need is one of you rolling off and crushing poor Cliff beneath you. Who will take over his driving shifts? The three other parents all laughed at your mom's joke. Excuse me. You finally caught Cove's eye, and he gave you a tiny smile before shrugging. With a sigh, you had to admit defeat. We tried. That's the important thing. Alright, you lot. Does everyone have everything they need? We're heading out in 5 minutes. Now's the time to double check. You don't want to forget something important. At that word, Elizabeth yelped and dashed back into the house, her bedhead hair bouncing behind her as she went. Ma came over and gave you a smile, setting her hands on her hips. How about you, Jamie? Do you have all your clothes packed, toiletries, deodorant, floss, anything else you can think of? You were confident you had it all, you weren't sure about that, oh, you had to run back inside for something, you just gave her a flat look. You know what, let's go in real quick, why not, see if we can grab anything. Sprinting up the stairs to the bathroom, you grabbed your toothbrush from behind the sink before heading back down. Oh, we forgot our toothbrush, that's not good. You were glad you were reminded to grab it after having left it out this morning. It would have been embarrassing if you couldn't brush your teeth for the next few days. Your mom was still out there, waiting with a knowing expression as you walked out again. Got everything now, Jamie? Yeah. Excuse me. With a few minutes left to spare before leaving, you mentally went over what you had packed for the trip. Clothes, a pillow, a blanket, usual day-to-day gear for most people. You also had more personal things, such as a portable gaming console, me in real life, pencils and paper, your favorite stuffed animal, a couple of things to read, a bag of makeup, a ball, your camera, and MP3 with headphones. The drive to Redwood National Park would take an entire day one way, so you wanted to make sure you had a way to entertain yourself while traveling there and back. Things to read. Again, like me. You had packed one of your old favorites, and a new one you never tried before. You knew you had plenty of time for both of them for such a long drive. Cameras for pictures, obviously. It was just a little pocket camera you had gotten from your mom's, but you couldn't miss the opportunity to take some new snaps. And music. Even though, you know, the camera and the music probably could go together with a modern phone, but, you know. With so much going on, spent driving the car, you want to make sure you'd be able to have some music to put on. Plus side, so we can listen to music with Cove, if we both put one headphone in. And that's it. She got sunglasses. Girl, it is like 6 a.m. Why do you have sunglasses on? Hey, let me take that for you, Jamie. I'll stow it in the RV. A few spots left. It'll fit. You let Kyra take your bag and gave her a grateful smile. With nothing left to do, you watched others get ready for the trip. Kyra and Cliff seemed to have the most energy of anyone. They were finished packing the suitcases away while your moms had gone to lock up their house. They high-fived whenever another one got cramped into the storage compartments of the vehicle. Even though your own parents were more low-key than Cove's, you could tell that they were both excited for the trip. It had been a while since your family had been away from anywhere together. Elizabeth skipped towards the RV, a bag slung over her shoulder, and you were surprised to see that she was more optimistic about the whole ordeal now. Usually, she wasn't the one to exit the confines of her room unless it was for food or TV or to leave her family behind to be with friends. You would have thought 3 whole days packed into an RV with 6 others would be too much for her, but it was a nice surprise. You suppose any vacation was better than no vacation in her mind. That's understandable. Cove had been pretty quiet so far, and more than anything, seemed to be overwhelmed by the situation. Yeah, he don't like big crowds. And he's still not 100% comfortable with her parents, even though he's grown up around them. You were excited for the trip, too. You weren't very excited for the trip. You were eager to get to the destination. Excuse me. You were curious about the RV, or you didn't feel much either way. Oh. Let me see. Let's be excited. It's going to be interesting. It was great to get away and explore new places. Soon, the miscellaneous remaining tasks had all been wrapped up. It's not bad. That'd be kind of fun to have a road trip, you know, with some family members and people that you consider to be family. Although, you know, gonna get on each other's nerves at some point, but fun overall, though, hopefully. Everyone piled into the RV. It was officially time for the trip to start. And it did. Cliff took the first shift driving. He cautiously navigated the massive car out of the narrow neighborhood streets. It was touch and go for the first part of the journey. Your moms and Kyra were all huddled at the front, trying to get a view of how much space they had on each side. That sounds like it sounds eventful. But I wouldn't feel comfortable driving one. It's so big. There was a sense of relief when the first long leg of the trip was hit, and the RV would only need to go down one stretch of highway for miles. That's always easy, going in the same direction for a very long period of time. Can't really screw that up too much. The mom group cleared out of the driver's area, leaving Cove's dad to it, taking more comfortable seats around the main cabin. You felt like you could finally relax now, too. Time slipped by as morning faded away. Before you realized it, the engine of the RV came to a stop, but only halted for a few moments as Cliff climbed out the driver's seat and Mom took over. Ma was sitting shotgun, giving Mom a quick tutorial on the controls, as it was her first time driving anything this large. Cliff grinned as he headed towards the rest of you, stretching his arms above his head and loosening up his muscles. He's got sunglasses on, too. We're making good progress. Yeah, maybe you should take a nap in the back for a while. That was a long call you just did, and I know you're on less sleep than usual. Cliff waved a hand, that trademark grin of his slipping into place. I don't need sleep. I still got a few miles in the old tank. He flexed an arm, showing off his muscles to drive the point about how resilient he was home, and Kyra rolled her eyes in amusement. Dad, everyone has to sleep. Yes, listen to Cove, who doesn't say much. Cove groaned at the tough guy act, though Cliff simply chuckled and ruffled his son's hair. Are you going to be driving again anytime, Mr. Holden? I want to know so I can prepare. Did anyone pack some rope? I might need it. There's no seatbelts up here. She trying to call Mr. Holden out. Elizabeth called down from where she was lounging in the loft above the driving compartment. She was laying on her back, her hair falling over to the side and swinging around the RV. Swinging around as the RV started up again and took off down the road. A bag of potato chips was balanced on Elizabeth's stomach, and she tossed a couple in her mouth right as Cliff held a hand to his chest, pretending to be offended by the remark. Kyra laughed lightheartedly. Lucky for all of us that we have enough adults to cover the ships today. He won't be driving again until tomorrow. You stayed quiet, you shook your head at the ripping. Ooh, that's a relief. Let's leave Mr. Holden alone. He's a good guy. Just enough time to write up my last will and testament. Okay, that's a little melodramatic. We shouldn't gang up on the poor guy, or it's not his driving I'm worried about. Dang. No, we ain't gonna throw shade at someone else. Let's be nice to him. Thank you. At least someone here is on my side. Mom then shuts back in her seat to join in the conversation, a playful smile tilting on her lips. What I'm more worried about is this old monster getting us there and back before falling apart. It looks as though it's been built in the early 90s. It must be older than some of the occupants. That's just the aesthetic of the decor. It's not that old. I think. That's always reassuring. I think. Did you ask what year the model was before you rented it? Kyra wrinkled her nose in the thought. Yes, I did. I just can't remember what the answer was. She don't remember. Cliff chuckled at her while the rest of you let out a collective sigh. That's cute. We're like one big family. It's adorable. The RV lurched a little as it picked up speed, and you held onto the ladder to the loft to keep your balance. You felt something graze the top of your head before a weight settled upon your brown hair. When you tilted your chin up to look carefully, you heard the rustling of the bag of chips and realized Elizabeth had rested at the bottom of your head. Oh, that's funny. She gestured to the opening, silently offering to share her snack. Well, I appreciate it, thank you. Of course we're gonna take some. Reaching up, you scooped up some chips, after the weight of the package left your scalp. You happily munched away as the conversation continued on, and you got closer and closer to your destination. I'm glad Elizabeth's being nice. The day flew by with the group of you chatting, playing games, and passing the time together before finally arriving at the park and setting up for the night. Ma was closing the windows while everybody got ready for bed, saying goodnight to the others as she made her way to the back room. You all had dinner together while still driving, and some hours after you had arrived at your destination and found a spot to park in for the rest of your stay. Giving a look across the front of the RV, you noticed almost everyone there was already dozing off where they were, with Cove having completely fallen asleep curled up in the passenger seat. That doesn't sound very comfortable. He must have done so while Kyra was driving the last leg, and they had decided not to disturb him. Kyra herself was the only one up there who was still awake, flipping through a magazine next to a portable light from her spot on the couch. It seemed Mr. Holden needed to sleep despite his claims. Excuse me. You followed your moms into the back room and closed the door behind you before crawling onto the bed between them. It was a queen-size bed, so there was enough space for the three of you together without too much squishing. Get a good rest, Jamie. We got a big day ahead of us tomorrow. I'm looking forward to the bushwalk in the morning. It's been a long time since I was out in nature like this. There'll be plenty for us to see. You stayed awake for a little while longer while your moms whispered about the park and the forest in general. With the sound of their voices in the background, eventually you nodded off to sleep. The next morning, you were up bright and early, preparing for the day ahead. You had slept well, you had okay sleep, you had slept terribly. Well, we've passed out, but I mean, we're sleeping with two other people on each side of us, so we'll say okay. It was nothing compared to your bed at home, but at least you didn't have to sleep on the floor, so you couldn't complain too much. Ma whined a bit about the firmness of the mattress, but Mom had only encouraged her to enjoy the trip while she could. While looking for a spot to get ready, you had trouble finding a space of your own, as the others were doing the same. Cove was perched on the top of the counter, brushing his hair and tucking up his legs every time someone wanted to move past. The parents were checking, double-checking, and triple-checking that you had everything, to the point where you stopped listening to them altogether. You knew you wouldn't be returning to the RV at all that day, but the way the look of the backpacks that were packed and ready to go, you doubt anything was missing from them. That looks nice. It didn't take much longer until you all exited the RV in a bustle and headed into Redwood National Park. Wow, I know, it looks pretty. Cove had his head tilted up towards the canopy of trees, his eyes wide as he took in the massive trunks on either side of you. You knew that the redwood trees here were considered the tallest trees on Earth. Interesting. But you weren't prepared for exactly how huge they'd be in person. Smile, you two. Come on, show your teeth, Cove. You spun just in time for Kyra to snap a picture of you and Cove together before she pointed her camera at Cliff, trying to get a shot despite his weak protest that she should just enjoy the moment. Your parents were walking behind the group a little, with Mom towing Ma some information she had read about the park in a brochure. Ma listened happily while looking around and taking in the sights. Every now and then, she'd ask a question or make a joke about something Mom had said. You smiled at them, thinking your mom must have read a lot of pamphlets to know so much about the park. Maybe you should come and work here as a tour guide if you know so much about the place. Elizabeth teased, earning a squeal on the nose from your mom. She seemed to be enjoying herself, but you thought that might just be because she was amused by everyone else's reactions. You were in awe of the redwood trees. You were fascinated by the sensations surrounding you. You were in a good mood. You weren't as impressed as the others. You were embarrassed that the adults were being so touristy. Hey, there's nothing wrong with being touristy. The air was fresh and clean, and it was nice to be outdoors with the people you love most. Yep. You were certain that this was the only beginning of what would be a great day. The adults had decided on some casual nature walks rather than any serious hiking, and you strolled along at your own pace, taking in the scenery. Elizabeth sped up a little, sparking at Cove as she fell into place between the two of you, and immediately you could tell by her expression she was going to say something taunting. I already knew it. I saw her. I was like, she's about to start something. I can't believe our families are actually on vacation together. She threw her arms out, speaking with a genuine sense of bewilderment. I would have joked about something like this happening, but now I'm not sure I want to give them any more ideas. Cove ignored her completely and kept on walking along. Just watch. Next year they'll be talking about their next new amazing idea. She put on a fake voice deeper than her own. We should just sell them our house and move in together. Think of how much we could save on the mortgage. Why does this sounds like a reality show? Doesn't it? Sounds like a new sitcom idea. Take notes, everyone. It was clear that Elizabeth had been sarcastic. Cove simply shook his head, not really bothered by her. You suppose he was used to this at this point. Well, yeah, we've been together. I mean, we've grown up together for at least a couple of years, so, you know, this is nothing new. But seriously, they really do act like we're a single family just because we live across the street from each other. It's not like it's a bad thing, Elizabeth. You know, and if me and Cove get together, then we would be family, so ha. Elizabeth gave you and Cove a look, her eyes glistening with mischief as she leered at you. Maybe one day we will be related. Legally, anyway. She knows. She already knows what's gonna happen. She said it as though she was a gossipy old lady. I love it. But she almost immediately dropped the tone and nonchalantly said her real thoughts. At least that's what Ma thinks. Oh, we already know what Mom thinks. Mom's totally trying to ship us. Cove still blushed, which made Elizabeth smile triumphantly, as though that was her whole purpose for teasing him. Well, yeah, she's like his big sister. Then he mumbled quietly, refusing to make eye contact with either of you. I don't know why you think you're so funny when no one else does. Oh, he told you. Now she looks mad. You told her to cut it out already. Cove has a point. It wasn't a great comment. I'll marry you, Cove. You ignored Elizabeth. You're embarrassed. I'm sorry, but, you know, I'm just trying to play it up for Elizabeth. He looked at you in disbelief. He generally could not believe this is where this conversation had gone. Don't worry over it. You can take as long as you need to think on that. I'm dying. Cove frowned and reddened harder, but pretended to ignore what you were saying. Your sister noticed what was happening. Oh, he isn't going to engage with this topic. That's kind of funny because I said I was going to marry him. She said engage. He groaned at the continued teasing and increased his speed of his walk. Okay, we'll show mercy on him now. The day continued on with plenty to see and experience. You passed a few different activities that you would have liked to try out if you had the time, such as kayaking and rock climbing. Ma said that, excuse me, that would have to wait for another trip. There was a little stream during the walk that you sat beside and set out, a picnic for lunch, nibbling on a selection of fruit, sandwiches, and chips. Various birds flew by overhead and made a game. Oh, and you made a game out of guessing the species that were hanging out in the nearby trees. You even managed to get a couple of them right, including the kingfisher that grabbed half of Cliff's sandwich. Poor Cliff. Cliff's always having a hard time, I swear. You were glad that you got to do this in the end. You were disappointed to only have one day in the park. You thought the long trip wasn't worth only one day here. You had more fun hanging out in the RV, or you hadn't had a good time with this trip. Probably wish you had more than one day. There was so much here, and you felt like you needed a whole week, maybe more, to experience it all. That just means you can have more trips here then. You sighed quietly to yourself, wondering if you get a chance to come back. Your group made it back to the camp just as the sun was setting in the sky, and the stars were appearing one by one. Everyone had enjoyed different parts of it the most. You traded stories of what you thought while you were eating. Then afterwards, you pitched in to help clean up. You, along with Elizabeth and Cove, got to head back to the RV early and spent some time together while the parents stayed outside longer. It was nice to have the place to yourselves after the cramped journey there, and while Elizabeth had locked herself in the back room with her headphones, you and Cove were left in the main lounge area. You headed to the loft to relax on your own, or you hung out with Cove? Obviously we're hanging out with Cove. We might as well get comfortable. Who knows how long they'll be out for. You took a seat on the sofa while Cove sat down on the other side, tapping his fingers against his knee. Hey, he's got a jacket on now. Cool. Your cheeks warmed a little at that. Being close to him never failed to feel exciting. You'd seen Cove nearly every day for the past 5 years, but seeing him in a jacket was still somewhat unusual. In South California, he could get away with that. Oh, Southern California. It was a simple difference from his normal style, yet you couldn't help but noticing the way he looked right now. It looked great on him. That's what I was thinking. It looks good on him. In fact, Cove always looked nice. When Cove cleared his throat, your eyes snapped at his. He had an eyebrow raised and had clearly caught you staring at him. Is everything okay? You averted your eyes from him entirely. Yeah, don't worry about it. That looks nice on you. Yeah, everything is really good. Or you nodded while saying nothing. Cove immediately blushed at the unexpected compliment. What? He didn't say anything more than that one-word answer. You decided to elaborate further. You know, I hardly ever see you wearing a jacket, especially in summer. Oh yeah, I like wearing as few layers as possible. It's easier that way. I'd rather be cold than extra hot. And it's just kind of a pain to carry extra clothing around. My parents made me bring this jacket. Well, it looked good on you. I'm the same way. I don't mind either. I love wearing layers. I love layers and accessories too. I'm always cold. I always have a jacket on. There's something about a lot of layers that makes me feel all snug and comfortable. Cove smiled slightly at you and nodded. I've noticed. You perked up at hearing that. He had noticed you too? You changed the subject, or you asked him what he likes to see others wear? We're fishing. Hey, what other kind of things do you like that you think are nice to see on another person? Cove's eyes widened at the question, and his defensive reply seemed to slip out before he had a chance to properly think about it. Ooh, let's see what he has to say. Nothing. That was funny, or you paid no mind to it. You laughed out loud, and Cove gave you a dry look. Come on, that's not what I meant. You composed yourself and sat up straighter, all traces of laughter disappearing from your face. Answer with what you do mean then. Isn't there anything at all that you think looks good when you see it on someone? Cove mumbled under his breath, and you couldn't quite catch the words. He was having a difficult time with the subject. Blech. It was a topic that made him uncomfortable, so you let it go. You had a little fun, and that was enough. You changed the subject. You're not very good at these conversations, are you? I swear I won't make fun of you, or I just thought it'd be fun to talk about. Oh, let's go with this one. That's not really it. Cove seemed pretty grumpy about your statement, but you weren't ready to give up so easily. Please, for me. Cove sighed and looked down at his lap where he was fidgeting with his hands, still reluctant to give an answer. Well, I mean, that's fine. You made an unimpressed sound over how this was going. Are you sure? Maybe. I don't know why you want to talk about that with someone else. Cove was never one to gab on about himself, and you were almost convinced he was stubbornly holding out, but then his shoulders slumped and he caved into your questioning. Fine, I guess. I kind of like ankle bracelets. Ankle bracelets. That's interesting. Ankle bracelets. Yeah, everyone can wear a pretty ankle. Yeah, everyone can wear a pretty bracelet. Wrist ones are cool too, but they're pretty normal. There's something fun or flirty about ankle bracelets. Well, that's an interesting thought. It's more special or something. I don't know how to explain it. I guess he's right. More people have, like, wristbands than, like, have an ankle bracelet, so it's more special, I guess. Interesting. Cove brushed his knuckles against his cheek awkwardly, seemingly unsure where to go from here. Thanks for answering. I like them too. Huh, out of everything in the world, you picked that? Or so you think they're sexy? No, we're not going there. We're not going to go there. Cove smiled at you, happy to hear he wasn't the only one who felt that way. When he said nothing else, she took a moment to gather your own thoughts. You have to get an ankle bracelet on ASAP. You had to get an ankle bracelet on ASAP. Maybe you wear your anklets more now. Maybe you wouldn't wear your anklets so often. You thought about buying an anklet of your own. You were happy to hear more about Cove, but it didn't really change anything. You needed to show Cove how. You needed to see how Cove would react to that. Exactly. We need to see what he thinks. Tease him at the very least. Cove looked away again, feeling awkward about this. You gave him an understanding look, and usually he would start to smile again normally, but not this time. His expression only stiffened more. You were surprised to see him like this, as he always bounced back pretty quickly after being flustered. Cove. Still, he wouldn't look at you, and now even his breathing was growing tense. It began to click. He was trying to build himself up to say something hard for him. Aww. He's trying to get his courage up. That's so sweet. You waited for it silently. Until finally, he peeked your way through the corners of his eyes. You were fully attentive at this point for whatever he was going to say next. I'm curious. People having blue eyes is also something I like. Oh, I know. Blue eyes are so beautiful. I love blue eyes. Very pretty. He's got really pretty eyes too. Wait a minute. I think I made my character have blue eyes, like me. So he just said that he likes our blue eyes. Huh? For a moment you were stunned and at a complete loss of words. That was definitely not where you imagined this was going. Cove faced you head on, his expression full of determined or desperate meaning. You got the distinct impression he hasn't chosen that just because he liked the color blue. He chose it entirely because it was your eye color. Exactly. Was he trying to flirt with you? That was all you could think of. Your legs felt like jelly and you wondered if you might fall off the couch right now. Aww. What do you like for another person, Jamie? Muscles, pretty hair, glasses, blue eyes, everything about you. Let's just go for the kill. Cove went still, his eyes widening in surprise. It was definitely a lot for him to hear, but you couldn't help yourself. It was the truth. You adored him. And now you were both flirting with each other. That's so cute. He placed his hands in his lap and looked down. It seemed he hadn't expected to get this far and didn't know where to go from there. With that, the topic abruptly dropped off. Cove officially had nothing more to say on it. Aww. The parents all soon arrived after, each of them climbing into the RV and finding some place to sit down and rest their legs. Elizabeth, having heard the commotion, came out of the room for the first time since arriving and joining you all. Excuse me. You spent the evening chatting and playing a few games, enjoying the last evening of the trip together. Bedtime arrived within the blink of an eye. As the group hunkered down for the night, your mom did a final round to be sure nothing had been left behind. Excuse me. She explained that Cliff was going to start driving early in the morning, like on the first day, but would be letting everyone else in the group sleep. There wouldn't be a need for all you to be up. Now was the time to wait a minute. Now was the time to check you hadn't left anything outside. You, as well as everyone else, were confident you had packed up everything inside the RV, which meant it was time to get some rest before the journey head home tomorrow. Your mom and Elizabeth said goodnight, heading to the back room while you climbed up the loft. Have Cove climb up with you. Cove and his family got situated below in the previous set arrangement. You tried to get comfortable as a million thoughts were running through your mind. It was hard to believe that the trip was practically over, and before you knew it, you'd be back in your own bed at home. You enjoyed this mini adventure, you thought the trip had been okay, you felt the trip was a waste of time, or you hadn't had a good time. It was short, but that was for sure, but you got to see and do so much during your time here. All in all, it had been a nice break from home. The minutes ticked by silently. It didn't take long for you to hear the soft snores of Cliff and Kyra drifting up to you. They were asleep now, which means you and Cove are awake. Come on. You wondered if Cove was still awake and decided to poke your head from the loft to find out. You blinked through the dark. Looking down the hall, you noticed Cove laying on his back, eyes staring straight up at the ceiling. His seafoam hair was spread out on his sleeping bag. He must have felt you watching him because suddenly his eyes were locked on yours. It was different to see much in the dim light, but you could make out the crooked smile on his face as well enough. You grinned back at him, you made a silly face, you waved at him. Cove shrugged in his bed while still smiling, or at least you thought he did. Then you gestured for him to come over. Then you would try to go back to sleep. Then you decided to have fun quietly. Cove looked unsure about it, but you were happy to see him slowly start to sit up anyway. His sleeping bag rustled as he moved, though he tried to go slow, and froze up like a deer in the headlights every time he made a sound, watching his parents for any sign of movement. Eventually, he managed to maneuver around his sleeping dad and make it to the ladder, standing on the bottom rung, where he looked up at you and whispered. What? What? Hi. Oh, it was nothing. Good night. How are you? You invited him up to the loft. Do you want to come up? His eyes widened just so. You could only tell because he had come to where you were. Cove glanced behind him quickly at his sleeping parents before turning back to you. Okay. That was easy. You broke out into a grin and scooted back up as far as you could, making space for him to crawl in. He was very tall, so it wasn't a great fit for him, but he managed to squeeze himself in. Even if you weren't exactly tall, the loft was still a tight squeeze with the two of you in there together. Aw, that's so cute. You laid down next to each other on your sides, face to face. He got under the blanket for a bit. Oh, he got under the blanket a bit. One of his arms was nestled under his head for comfort. The other, nowhere to go, and was rested along his chest on the floor of the loft. Cove spoke to you softly. What am I doing here? I don't know. I thought we could hang out. You can sleep here instead of the floor. Cove raised an eyebrow, not having expected you to bring up this topic again. You're still thinking about that? You don't have to worry about me that much, Jamie, but thanks. It's okay. I'm not sure about this. Cove swallowed loudly, and you noticed he wouldn't look you in the eyes anymore. You were feeling the nervousness too. You felt comfortable being so close to him, or his reaction made you happy. It seemed natural to have him near you, and being close like this only made it better. You thought back earlier in the evening when you and Cove had been talking alone on the sofa. He had definitely been flirting then, and now you were here. You lay there silently. You tried to ease things with conversation. You nudged closer to him, or you touched his free arm lightly. You laid your fingers on Cove's arm, feeling the warmth of his skin beneath them. Cove's face flushed dark enough to notice that even in the almost pitch black RV cabin, the hand resting in front of him tightened, balling into a fist. You okay? I'm fine. I mean, I'm not dying or anything. Well, that's always good. Cove's eyebrows bent up nervously, but his smile widened. Aw. He curled himself deeper into the loft and closer to you. He looked away as he did it. There was almost no space left between you and him. Cove's breath tickled the side of your face. For a moment, you stayed together like that. Aw. Neither of you spoke a word. When your eyes locked again, Cove seemed almost taken back by the situation, as though it hadn't completely hit him what it was going to feel like until just now. He opened his mouth to say something, but shut it tight before anything came out. You went to sleep how you were, you moved back, you snuggled against him, or you leaned in to kiss him. Oh, snuggle or kiss? These are both important options. See how this works. You moved in even closer, eyes half closed as your lips led towards his slowly. Let's see how he acts. Cove froze immediately. You could feel his body trembling against you as you neared. You grew close enough to be one motion away from placing your lips together. Then all at once, he bolted upright, completely forgetting the restriction of the location and smacking his head against the roof of the RV with a loud crack, making you gasp out loud. Ow! We just got caught. Okay, I made the wrong choice, but I had to. You okay? Cove didn't answer. He fell back to the loft floor in a floated pile. He pressed one hand against his head and the other over his face as he groaned in pain. This is not going to end well. The sound of the movement in the RV below you startled you, and when you looked over to the side, you noticed Cliff had similarly shot up and was looking around wildly. Wake up, people. Something happened. Yeah, something happened, alright. We're going to get in trouble. Cliff reached over to where Kyra was on the couch, and she winced as he shook her out of her sleep deep enough to not be interrupted by the chaos. What's going on? And then the lights came on, and you scrambled under the blanket to avoid being seen, but it was too late. Cove, where are you? Jamie, are you? Oh. It only took her a second for Kyra to figure out where her son had gone, and you soon heard Cliff chuckle too as he realized. They wouldn't care, but you know your moms are gonna say something. I love Cove's dad, though. He's so cool, though. He's like, you were warned there wasn't much room up there, but... He's cool. I like Cove's dad. Cove groaned terribly again, but this time it was out of humiliation. He moved the hand from his sore scalp to also cover his shame rather than face his parents. What's with all the noise out here? To your honor, the door at the back of the RV opened and Elizabeth, as well as your moms, peeked their heads out into the hall. Is everything okay? I wonder if Cove's parents are going to be cool for us. It's nothing. Sorry for waking you up. Cove curled into himself, completely humiliated as he apologized a couple more times. Not loud enough for anyone other than you to hear them. You laughed. You just tried to check on him. How's your head? With another whimper, Cove pushed himself up to his side. I should probably get Mom to look at it. Kyra casually came over to the edge of the loft. She patted her son on the back. Come to Mommy, baby. You can't stay there. There was no pushing it. Cove climbed down the ladder, his face still red as a tomato as he hit the bottom. His dad gave him a nudge on the shoulder as he passed, trying to hold back renewed laughter, and his mom pulled him over to give his head a quick look. After announcing it wasn't nothing more than a bump, Cove shuffled over to his sleeping bag on the ground. He collapsed into it, not caring if he should be more cautious with his head right now. Alright, show's over, let's get some sleep. You could hear the snickers in the back of the RV from your moms and Elizabeth. They really had been watching this unfold like a piece of entertainment. But at that, they quickly said goodnight and headed to bed. With nothing more you can do, you laid back down and the lights went off again. You stayed there completely until sleep finally overtook you. When you woke up the next morning, it was to the rumble of the RV as it traveled the long journey home. Blinking the sleep from your eyes, you peeked over the edge of the loft, slowly trying not to be seen. Cove was sitting on the couch with his mom, the two of them talking quietly. His head was hung low. You blushed when you remembered what it was like last night, just the two of you up in the loft together, in the way you almost kissed. Kyra suddenly looked up and caught your eye, and your face grew even hotter, though she simply smiled at you. Everybody knows what's going on. Like, it's not a secret, people. You knew it was going to be a long, long time before either of you lived this down, if you ever did. Soon your moms and Elizabeth emerged from the room, dressed and ready for the day of travel. You spent most of the day hanging out together in the RV, savoring the last few hours of vacation. Kyra suggested a few different travel games she used to play with Cove when he was younger, and you all had a great time competing against each other. A little later in the day, you tried to talk to Cove about what happened in the loft, but he simply apologized and changed the subject. It was a bit too much for him to try speaking on, especially right now. You understood. When the RV finally pulled onto your street, it was well into the night, and you were looking forward to crawling into your bed after the last few days away. Everyone else must have felt the same, because it was mutually agreed that unpacking and cleaning the RV would wait until morning. Once home again, you went straight up to your room and dropped into your bed, shoes and all. You were happy to be in your own bed. It felt weird to be alone. It felt good to be alone. You wish you were still on your trip, or you missed being near Cove. The two of you had basically been living together for 3 days. It was nice. But you knew that it wouldn't be like the last time the two of you would spend time together, and that thought comforted you. Those last few thoughts drifting through your mind, it wasn't long before you dozed off to sleep. Tomorrow, life would go on like normal. And that's it for Road Trip, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, subscribe to the channel to know when the videos come out, and I'll see you next time when we start the DLC. So we're gonna start off with Mall and go down the list like we did with step 1. Yeah. But until then, peace out, everybody.